Hi everybody, and thanks for joining me today. So, I am getting close to finishing this pass. Yeah, I'm done with the peacock's tail feathers. I'm now working on the purple flowers that are on the very far right-hand side. Ooh, pardon me. Yeah, I have less than 2,000 stitches to go before this pass is completed, so yeah, I am getting there. Because yeah, I did the math. It's 209,000 stitches exactly to complete this pass. And then I will have 3 to go. So woohoo! Yeah, so I'm thinking in another couple of months I will be at the 3/4 complete point, which is, yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, and I now have less than 100,000 stitches to go. I passed that point recently, so yeah. Like I always say, these projects are so big, you have to celebrate every milestone you come across. Since, yeah, they take years to finish. Even if you work on them exclusively, which I'm not doing. Come on. Ah, there. Just drawing it along the back, and sometimes the end doesn't want to pop out if I had it the needle too far down, so that's kind of a pain. Yeah, because this is the edge here, so of course I am drawing all the ends in towards the center of the piece because I don't want them, yeah, extending past that edge and potentially showing through. Yeah, so looking at the colors, they kind of stripe out from here. And so I could have worked from the bottom up. I decided this time I'm going to work from the top down. So yeah, I was kind of working from the side out before, sometimes from the bottom up, but this time from the top down, but kind of also from the right-hand side in towards the left hand, because that's just the shapes that are forming, and they kind of, that's what makes sense to me to follow. The way the color flows, which is how this method got its name. I didn't quite start at 0, but I was pretty close. I was like at 9 stitches done, so might as well be. Close enough. Okay. So yeah, if I do pin stitch, I try to do it sort of at least about 8 or so stitches in, just to be sure, like I said, that the tail of the thread will not extend past. Yeah, I trim them to about, I'd say, 1 centimeter on the back. So sort of as long as I'm, yeah, over 1 centimeter from the edge, I should not have a problem. But when I get to the end, I do always flip my work over and just double check at the back, and if there's any ends that are, yeah, poking out, I just tuck them back in underneath. I try to avoid it, but there's usually 1 or 2 that have to be yeah, redirected. So yeah, colors in my working tray changed recently. Put the oranges and the yellows and stuff away. So now it's into the purples. once I'm done this pass, I will again go through the tray and pack away stuff that won't be used for a while. Oh dear. Yeah, I've been slacking on my exercising and I'm noticing it's impacting my sleep, so I made sure to force myself to get some exercise this morning. So hopefully tonight will be a little better. Yeah, I'm really bad at keeping habits like that. I say I could spend months trying to build a routine or build a habit, and then I miss it for one day and then that's it. All that progress is lost. It's hard to keep the momentum going. Which I say is kind of strange because I do tend to be a creature of habit, but I guess if it's stuff I like doing, then that's easy to stick to, right? But yeah. Yeah, I saw a meme saying, I kind of wish exercise was something I could, I could hire out to someone else. Like, yeah, just about anything else, you can pay someone else to do it for you, right? Cooking, cleaning, driving, whatever. But yeah, exercising, no, that's all on you. Yeah, that one you can't just drop it off and pick it up later when it's done. You gotta do it yourself. Yeah, like I said, I do have an exercise machine that I keep out for when the weather's bad. But I find it's harder to stick to it, knowing that I can sort of stop at any time, yeah. Whereas if I go for a walk, yeah, if I'm, a few blocks away from home, well, nothing to do. I got to walk back, right? So, yeah. So yeah, there's still some navy and stuff for the shadows, I think, between the flowers, and there was some on the eye motifs of the peacock there. Ooh. Yeah, I find the lower half of this pattern is a lot darker colors. The top had more sky. And yeah, water, so that was quite light colors. And now it's into the more darker ones. Yeah, I tend to like to stitch with the darker, more vibrant colors, personally. Super short little bit, but looks like we're good. I think I missed it. Yeah. A little bit short of the correct. Yeah, I was trying to avoid stitching over the grid line, but I think by doing that, I kind of ended up shortchanging the stitch, which you don't want to do because, yeah, those grid lines, I'm taking them out later. So, yeah, I have a lot of people ask that. Like, yeah, I would not be leaving them in the finished piece. That is not the look I'm going for. So, yeah, I do slide them out afterwards. Yeah, I just find that it makes my stitching so much easier for me. Don't have to count quite so much. Yeah, it was funny. That was a meme I shared too. It was for crocheting, but I mean, it applies to pretty much any fiber art. It said, yeah, a question asked while I'm counting stitches will be answered with louder counting. Like, yep. was funny, like it was a group I was in, and a lady said, yeah, when her kids were little, they would imitate her sometimes. So they would pick up a piece of yarn and fiddle with it and then put it down and say, okay, I can help you now. I remember my son found a little scrap piece of yarn, and he had 2 crayons, and he draped the yarn over it and then started clicking the points together, pretending he's knitting. Yeah, it's pretty cute. Well, that's how they learn, right? When they're really little, is by copying us. Oh dear. That is not quite yet. There. Oh, there was a tiny little knot, but just gonna take a peek here. Yeah. What a pain in the behind. Yeah. Oh. How annoying are you? Yeah, it formed a little knot there. I tell you, if I was trying to make a knot like that, I wouldn't be able to. Yeah, so once again, I'm gonna pin stitch this over here because I don't want that knot to show up in the middle of a stitch, even though it's very small and probably nobody would notice it unless they were actually running their finger over the stitching, but still. Oops, yeah. You can either highlight stitches to mark or highlight them to frog, but you can't do both at once. There is a setting on Pattern Keeper that you can have it so that if you've already stitched them, they don't show up in the highlights, but I do like to be able to see, so you can see other spots on the pattern where the stitch appears. It's highlighted even though they're completed. There's an option to turn that off and it will only highlight the unstitched ones for this. Yeah, I don't think I have the update yet. I haven't checked. Supposedly there is slowly rolling out, they're rolling out an update that you can mark stitches to unpick later. So yeah, actually I'm curious. Yeah, they don't have a more for that. Okay. Yeah, so what would happen is you would highlight stitches that are already stitched, and there would be a more that would appear next to the little frog symbol, and you could mark them. So yeah, like, because you have it for marking stitches, you can park it and stuff. So obviously I do not have that update yet. Yeah, I probably wouldn't use that feature very much because when I make a mistake, I fix it immediately, and so I wouldn't be leaving stitches there to be unpicked later. But yeah, I mean, I could see why that could be very useful for some people. Yeah, that you know you've made a mistake and you will fix it, but you haven't got to it yet, but you want to have it marked down where that is. Yeah, when I worked from paper, I used to circle that, because what I would do is I would highlight the stuff I was going to stitch in yellow, and then when it was stitched, I would go over it with another color highlighter. And yeah, so if it turned out something there had made a mistake, I would circle it with a pen so that I would remember to go back and fix it later. Well, I wouldn't have to remember. It would be marked because yeah, if I tried to rely on memory, it probably wouldn't work that well. My memory is not great. Yeah, I said it depends. I swear, anything useful I want to remember, forget it. stuff I wouldn't want to remember sticks there forever. I said, yeah. What did I walk into the room for? Nope. Where did I leave my keys? Nope. But the mean thing somebody said to me when I was like in kindergarten, yeah, that's still there. Perfect clarity, you know? Oh, I don't know. I heard maybe that it's if a memory has an emotion, a strong emotion attached to it, you're more likely to remember it. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have much emotions about where I left my keys except when I can't find them and I get frustrated, but yeah. So, like, yeah, maybe there is some truth in that. Who knows? There is so much about the brain we still don't know how it works, right? And then not just that, but different people's brains work differently. Like I've mentioned before on this channel, I was shocked to find out my husband doesn't think in words because that's how I think. There's always narration and chatter and stuff going on in there. And yeah, because he is fluent in 2 languages. I said, so which language do you think? And he's like, oh, I don't think in words. I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, and then finding out that there's some people who don't see images in their mind. Which, yeah, to me, I have a hard time grasping that idea because I see very vivid images in my mind. I say they're not, they said, when you think of an apple, what's in your mind? And they showed like from nothing to a perfect picture and sort of in between. And they said out of 5, and I said, I'm like a 4. So it's not perfect picture quality, but it's pretty close. Sort of the edges are a little hazy, a little fuzzy, but yeah, it's otherwise pretty vivid in my head. When I read a book, it's like there's a movie playing in my head. Especially if it's a really good book. You sort of, it doesn't happen very often, but it's a pretty neat experience when I'm reading and it's like the words disappear and I'm just seeing it in my head. Yeah. Hard to describe to someone who doesn't. Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because one of my friends has that, who said, yeah, they had a hard time with any of these fall asleep faster because most of them required you to picture something in your head. And she's like, well, I can't though. Yeah, it was this one saying a guaranteed way to fall asleep in 10 minutes and all this stuff. And I tried it. Nah. I wish, but no, for me. I can't remember. It's like focusing on, can't you remember what they were telling you to picture, like lying in a hammock or something like that? I don't know, but yeah. My brain goes at 100 miles an hour, and it is very hard for me to focus on one thing. Oh, okay, just making sure. For a second, I thought I might have put that stitch in the wrong place, but no. I was looking at the wrong spot on the pattern. It's all good. Yes, I had a friend saying they wondered if that's why they had problems with remembering stuff because they can't picture it in their head. I'm like, yeah, I don't know though. I can picture stuff in my head, and yeah. I still have memory problems, so who knows? Yeah, that's why I've often said I think something like telepathy wouldn't be possible because people think so differently. You'd have to be trying to communicate with someone who thought the same as you, who thought in images or didn't, or whatever, thought in words or didn't, yeah. And I'm wondering, would it be hard to keep from like random thoughts that you wouldn't want someone else to hear or perceive from being transmitted if you were communicating with telepathy? Yeah. Oops. So yeah, I'm going to end up with some kind of funky shapes as I work this part. But as always, like I say, try not to close stitches in on all four sides. So like this, I wouldn't be doing all this right away because that would close in that one stitch there. So I'm going to do those three, park it, and then change colors. Pardon me. Yeah, so I think I said if I manage my 8,000 total in this month, it'll be, I think, to 213,000. So oh dear. Yeah. Yeah, so we still have snow here, but it's getting close to being gone. Yeah. It's more just in sort of the big piles where people moved it off their driveways that are still there. Yeah, the piles in the parking lots from being plowed, those are going to be there till like June. Those take a long time. Yeah. Because, I mean, some of them get as tall as like a first-story building. And they get covered in dirt and stuff, right? And that kind of insulates them from the sun a bit. So that makes them take even longer to melt. In fact, yeah, that's how they used to store ice in historical times. They would cover them with straw and sawdust. Yeah, because of course, no refrigeration. So in the winter, yeah, they would go into the lakes the frozen lakes and cut out big blocks of ice out of the lake and then keep them in an ice house. Yeah, covered in. It's like, man, just the thought now of it, like, how unsanitary, right? Yeah. Like, even in fresh water, there's got to be plenty of bacteria and stuff living in it. And then, yeah. Yeah, or I remember reading, that's why having an orange in your Christmas stocking was such a big deal, because, of course, back in, 1800s, that was a rich people food, right? Yeah. They had to be grown in greenhouses, which, of course, most people didn't have access to. So, yeah, they were quite expensive. So, yeah, a lot of people, that might be a once a year treat that they only got at Christmas time. Yeah, now we kind of take it for granted, right? Yeah, in fact, in some Regency times and stuff, they would actually call the greenhouse the orangery. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to be careful with eating too much fruit, especially citrus fruit, yeah. Causes dry skin patches and irritation. So, yeah, like I said, the older I get, the more foods I can't eat. And what's really frustrating is sometimes it's healthy foods, like, fruit. But, yeah, I have to be careful not to overdo it because I will suffer for it later. Like I say, I love lemonade, but I have to limit myself to maybe a glass once or twice a month because, yeah, if I do more than that, my poor skin, it complains. I love pineapple, but it does not love me back. Yeah, my son enjoyed the taste of it, but unfortunately, yeah, he's even more sensitive to it than I am. Like, I won't feel any effects of it until the next day or so, but he had immediately, it was made his poor lips bleed, so yeah, he couldn't eat it. Yeah, so like the really acidic ones, unfortunately, I have to be careful. Or yeah, like I said, we have an apple tree and I make apple juice every year, but I can only have it maybe once a week, once or twice a week, because yeah. Like I said, it's frustrating because, I mean, it's supposed to be good for you, right? Yeah, my husband can't eat most fruits either. His tongue hurts when he does. He can generally eat them if they're cooked. So, like, if I bake, like, a apple crumble or something, he can eat it. Or applesauce. But, yeah, like, to actually eat just an apple, he can't. Yeah. Yeah, because I make this really yummy berry crumble. They have there's a frozen berry mix that they have at our grocery store. So it's blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, and raspberries. And yeah, so it's delicious. Okay, so this piece is short, so I'm going to kind of break up this section of color here. Yeah, I remember my mom would make crumble, but she would put hardly any butter in the topping, the oats, so it was so dry. You had to eat it with like a glass of, a mug of tea alongside because, yeah, it was too dry otherwise. Oh. Yeah, my mom was pretty obsessed with food being healthy. And, like, I remember one time we bought a bag of chips because they were on sale. But she wouldn't let us eat them for, like, months. We asked her if we could open the chips, and she wouldn't listen. When she finally did let us eat them, we opened the bag, and you could smell it. It was off. Yeah. The oil had gone bad in it. Even pretzels, she wouldn't listen. I'm like, pretzels are healthier even. They're baked, right? Yeah. I mean, they're basically like a cracker, right? Rather than a chip, but yeah. Yeah, so I've kind of got a section of color here, and then the next one, another flower petal comes out here, and then another one, and so that's how I am growing this outward. Yeah, so like I probably won't reach 70% because I was at about 66% and a bit, close to 67 when I started, and I manage close to 3% per month. So yeah, I could, but we'll see. Like I often say, I don't really make goals for myself anymore because they were just making me stressed. Yeah, not bad. About to pass 100 pretty soon. Like I said, I didn't quite start at 0, but I was pretty close. It was like 9. Try to get this to work. Yeah, so like I said, I had bought myself a refurbished phone and the battery was garbage. So I returned it and I got an email that yes, they are refunding me. So yeah, at least it was pretty painless. They sent me the prepaid shipping label to ship it back. And yeah. So there was that. And then I ordered myself another one from a different place. It is much better. So yeah, I'm set for a while. Yeah, my new one has the ability that I can set up my Face ID scan to have me with glasses and without it. So that's kind of nice because, yeah, I said sometimes it kind of sucks. When I don't have them on, it won't work. It's kind of random because sometimes it will work when I have my sunglasses on and sometimes not. Yeah. Yeah, I actually preferred when they used to do the fingerprint scan. I found that more generally reliable. But yeah, they changed it. Yeah, they do say, though, the most secure is to have no scan and to use just a passcode is the, yeah. Especially when they're like 6-digit passcodes, that's like 10,000 possibilities. So yeah, the chances of somebody guessing it, unless you use something that's, you know, super obvious, like your, you know, your birth date or something like that, yeah, it's pretty hard for them to crack. I don't have mine set that if you do 10 incorrect attempts, it will erase, but it's funny though, because I had that on an old phone and I actually was trying to erase it and it didn't want to reset for some reason. And so I tried putting in the wrong code a bunch of times and it didn't work. I still didn't erase it. So yeah, I'm not sure how reliable that is. It did not work for me. However, I wouldn't guarantee that it wouldn't work either. So don't try it, you know, unless you are okay with the phone erasing. But yeah, I don't want to do that because, like I said, I had a brain fart moment where I couldn't remember my passcode to my phone. I was mixing it up with a passcode to something else. And I was sitting there just going, I don't understand why I can't remember this because, yeah, I've put in the code when I'm half asleep. Like, I do know that I know it. It's in my brain, but yeah. It was like I remember when I was in high school sometimes over Christmas break, I would come back and I'd forget my locker combination. I'd be standing there just going, oh no, and just sort of spinning the lock sort of idly, and then suddenly just go, oh yeah, okay, and then I have to stop and slow down and yeah, look at what my hands had done because it was in the muscle memory. Yeah. Yeah, the body remembered even if the brain didn't. Yeah, it's interesting because they said there have been cases even like patients who've had degenerative, you know, neurological conditions as they get older can still have the muscle memory to precisely do skills that they trained with when they were younger. Yeah, I guess it stores in a different part of your brain and yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid and I would see amnesia stories and I'm thinking, okay, but how come they still remember how to talk and like do things? And it's like, yeah, because actually procedural memory and like other kinds of memory are different. It's actually quite fascinating. Yeah, like I said before, there's just so much about the way the brain works that we still don't know. We may never know, no matter how much research we do, right? It may remain a mystery to us. So I think it's one of those things where the whole is more of the sum of its parts, right? Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was a Star Trek episode where Data is trying to figure out if these machines that someone had made that were basically like another kind of artificial intelligence, if they were alive, and he goes to Dr. Crusher and sort of asks her to define life, and she kind of says, yeah, that's something we've been wrestling with for, you know, hundreds of years, trying to define exactly what it is. Yeah. Because like she said, okay, well, it can reproduce, it, you know, it requires sustenance, you know, and all this stuff. And he's like, well, what about fire? It can produce offspring, it, you know, and stuff. She goes, yeah, but fire's a chemical reaction. It's like, yeah, but living organisms also are just basically a series of chemical reactions, right? So, yeah. Yeah, humans like to categorize things into neat little boxes, and a lot of stuff just defies our attempts to categorize it. Getting almost too many needles, but pretty soon I'm going to be able to tie some of these off. So then that will not be a problem anymore. Yeah, nice thing about this new phone I've got is it's got twice the storage space in my old one. So yeah, I had sometimes when I was going to be making videos, I'd have to go through and like offload a lot of apps to make space. Yeah. This one I have no problem. There's plenty of room. Yeah, my old one was 64 gigs and that was kind of iffy, so this one is twice that, so that's nice. Yeah, my husband has a Samsung and they actually had the ability to put like a memory card in it so that you could expand the memory, but he said he read that they're getting rid of that, so he's kind of annoyed because, yeah, he liked to carry a lot of music. He had his entire music library on his phone. Yeah, I said, I don't do that. I don't sync everything. I just put, yeah, like my current favorites on my phone. I have a lot of classical music and I'm not carrying all that around. Yeah. That's sort of something I have to be in the mood to listen to, right? Yeah, I had for a while, I actually had kept an old phone that I used as just for my music so that I wouldn't have it on my regular phone because, yeah, that was back when it was like only 32 gigs or something. So, yeah, space was really at a premium. Music takes up a lot of space. Music and photos are sort of the biggest, yeah, space hogs. Yeah, and I'm still driving an older car. No Bluetooth. Yeah, it's an '09, so yeah, I actually have to plug it in with a physical cable. It's actually old enough that I still have a CD player in my... I don't really use it that much, but yeah, I do have one in my car. No tape deck. Yeah, well, I generally don't buy music on physical mediums anymore. Well, one thing I kind of like is if I do buy it on iTunes, then it stays in the cloud, right? So I can re-download it anytime. But for a long time, I was still buying things on disc because, I don't know, I'm just someone who likes to have the physical media because you just never know. Digital can disappear on you, right? Yeah. Yeah, I was annoyed once. I had discovered a new podcast and they had lots of back episodes. And so I started at the beginning and I was listening my way through the whole thing. I got about halfway through and they took down all their old episodes. I was like, no! Oh. I mean, I get it. Maybe they had to pay for storage space and they figured nobody's going to be listening to stuff that's, 5 years old, but I was. So, yeah. I even went to their website to see if they had an archive available there, but they did not, so. Yeah, or I remember I was subscribed to Amazon Prime for a while and I was watching the show Castle on it. And then they gave a warning that, this show will expire, will be taken down in like 14 days. And I had like 4 seasons left to go. I was like, no. So I binged it hard and I did finish it. And then deadline came, it was still there. Yeah, and I was like, oh, come on. And then the little deadline went away. They had it there. And then a couple months later, it said, oh, this will disappear in, 20 days or whatever. And then it didn't. And yeah, they did that about 3 times. I was like, you jerks. If I'd known, yeah, I would have taken my time with it a little more. That was a fun show. Except the last season was not great. Yeah. I felt they kind of tried to recapture the tension from the earlier seasons and it didn't work anymore. Unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of shows, right? They often try to go for one more season beyond what they should, or even more than that. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I was kind of disappointed when the Canadian show Kim's Convenience ended. But at the same time, the creator kind of said, we don't want to be one of those shows that is no longer fresh and fun and it should have ended earlier and we didn't. So I'm like, okay, I can respect that. I'm disappointed, but I can respect that. I would rather be left going, oh, I wish there was more than, oh my gosh, you guys should have just, yeah, ended this, stop beating a dead horse, and ended this years ago. Yeah. Okay. All right. Just deciding when I want to, if I want to add a full length piece or just a partial piece here. Okay, take a look at this one. Part here. Okay, this looks like a new piece, yeah. Okay. Yeah, if this was a short piece, I would have started another new one there, but since this is a long piece, I'm going to try and stitch with just one for now. Okay. Okay, that sounded kind of weird, but it's okay. Duck my head underneath and make sure we don't have any big snarls on the back, because that is never desirable. There, so I did that so that I could carry this thread all the way over here and not have to start a new one. I don't mind multiple threads, but of the same color, but if it's not necessary, then yeah, I'm not going to clutter it up with more. Those as well. So yeah, as long as the stitch I'm doing is connected on one side, I'll do it. Oh, yeah, okay, I thought for a second I had made a mistake, but no, I had not. So yeah, I think anything that's kind of parked over here, I'm gonna have no needle on it for now because I'm gonna focus on building up that bit and then the next bit. So This one already has a needle on, so I might as well just stitch with it and park it. This, do those. Hang on a second. Something looks kind of wonky there. Okay, that looks better. Yeah, it was kind of just... There we go. Yeah, it wasn't quite lying nice and flat there. Which is what I wanted to do. There, set it aside. Yes, I'm thinking next session next time I stitch with you all, I might be finishing up this pass. That'd be cool. We will see how far I get. Okay, so I'm just going to check the length of this one here. Okay, yeah, not very. That is what I thought. Part of why I carried this thread over here, although this is not terribly long either. They're probably both gonna run out pretty soon, and I'll be adding a new one. Oh, what happened here? That, I see. One strand came out. That will not work. Okay, and again, I have 2 threads coming from either side. Okay. Which did not want to stay threaded. That happens sometimes. Okay. Carry this one over and back. See, they kind of branch off and go around another color there. Look at that, I'm about to hit 200 pretty soon. Yeah, I think that'll be a good stopping place. In fact, this will bring me to an exact even 200, which is a nice round number. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I kind of started with this shape up here, and I ended up with this shape again further down, which is kind of, like I said, why I've been sort of stitching that way. That's sort of the way the colors are growing, and that just makes sense to me. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you here next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.